Yeah, thank you, Shobhata. Such a privilege to be following this panel. I mean, presenting after Captain Devu, Mr. David, and Mr. Sukumaran, and others before me. It is really, as much as it is a privilege, it's also very humbling. Now, my topic for the day is reimagining maritime competence, and I would like to mention that we have taken as a company, we have taken a little bit of a radically different approach to maritime competence, and over the course of the next 15 minutes, I wish to change a couple of ideas in this room, hopefully, and rethink a couple of things. But before I start, I must say that we come from a place where we believe very firmly in this company that anything to do with maritime competence must start with a deep empathy for the seafarers. Understanding the thought process of the seafarers, how they think, how they feel, is an integral part. And let me explain what I mean. This is an oil tanker. I was back in 2008, I was on this oil tanker, my first ship as a chief officer. And I clearly remember standing in front of the mooring winch with a checklist while preparing for a SIRE inspection. There was this one point in the checklist that had something to do with the... Sorry, what? This is not... Yeah, so there was one element in this checklist concerning the brake adjustment screw under the brake band. And I did not understand this point. Now, there was only one way to know. I had to call the master and I had to ask his guidance. I had to ask him to show me what this was. This was a very application-based element. Unfortunately, a couple of days back, the master had called me and explained to me that, see, you're the chief officer, I'm not here to teach you. If you don't know your job, you're going to go home. So, at that point of time, I remember feeling this deep resistance in asking that question. And I ended up ticking off that checkbox without really understanding what I was doing. Alright? A couple of days later, I found out that, okay, this was something that could have led to a deficiency in a post-trade inspection. And for sure, it would have been a deficiency in the SIRE or a post-trade inspection. Now, was I a dumb chief officer? Is this an exceptional case? I need you to understand that people sailing for companies that take pride in their standards of training still have their doubts. Doubts that can lead to mistakes that can lead to accidents. And when these doubts are not clarified, when mentorship on board is not happening the way it is expected to happen, there are not many places that a seafarer can look into. People are referring to YouTube and trying to text their friends asking for professional suggestions. Would you trust a surgeon that before going into the operating room tells you that, let me quickly check on YouTube how to do this surgery? Ours is a very, very niche kind of a work. It's a very specific job. We need specific guidance for this kind of work. That's where we started working, and essentially what we tried to do, what we started doing is basically to simplify instructions. So we wanted to simplify everything, every instructions on board as to how the seafarer should conduct themselves, how they should perform. That has been our area of expertise. We divided the vessel into 16 physical zones. We went very deep into understanding how to keep each and every zone compliant, studying checklists, studying thousands and thousands of observations, responses, and from that information, we started visualizing that information. We visualized everything on board, taking them on live ships and showing them, not telling them, but showing them exactly what they are expected to do. Now, visualizing of information has a very, very strange effect. It doesn't leave much room for doubt. If you ask me, is the fire extinguisher in good condition? That question means something very different to a third officer, very different to a chief officer, very different to a master or a senior inspector. But if you show me what you mean by a fire extinguisher being in good condition, that has a very different effect. We started getting noticed almost immediately. This is 4.5 years back. We started getting noticed by industry leaders such as Dr. Pradeep Chawla of Anglo Eastern, Mr. Ral Harris of Videotel, Mr. John Adams of the MD of V Group and so on and so forth. Companies started adopting them, companies started accepting them, and it turns out that if you are really, really good in instructing the seafarers on how to perform, that translates to better inspection results, better audit results. So companies were involving us, we sort of became this expert in audits and inspections, and that has been our journey. So over the last 4 years, we have been working numerously with HSEQ departments around the world. Companies like the Swire Group, MOL, K-Line, and others are using our content and impacting the performance of the vessels in inspections. But at its core, it's about competency. It's about developing organically the competency of seafarers. We have more than 400 content titles today that simplify the on-job skills with extreme research done behind them and that are being used on hundreds of vessels. We have research papers and books published on them. And today we are almost on all the major trading platforms, including the Ocean Technology Platform, Mintra, Seably, and so on and so forth. So essentially these platforms that we are on cover almost 75% of the world fleet. But today I want to take it up a notch. Today I want to go from training to measurable and objective improvement in performance levels. But before I do that, I want to discuss a couple of myths that run across our industry, that has been running across our industry for several years. Myths that has cost a lot of money to this industry. And something that we have been fighting against for quite some time. The first one is that text-based instructions are the only way to go. Now, think about this. Every mobile app that you're using, every website you're going to, even a brochure that you're going to get today is trying to capture your attention audio-visually. And this has been happening for the last 15 to 20 years at least. So we have become visual communicators, especially the younger generation is visual in their communication skills. Think about the instructions that we give to the seafarers. The checklists, the PMS guidance, safety circulars, vetting bulletins, all of them are text-based instructions. I think 20 years later, the generation will look back at our generation and say that, wow, they were using text at that time when they could have done something else, so we can do better. If you have ever complained that text-based instructions are not getting that traction, things are not going to improve if we keep doing that. So my suggestion would be to go audio-visual on content. If you have any intention to engage the seafarers, engage the younger generation of seafarers, we absolutely must go audio-visual. I can go into details on how to do that. We have been doing that for years now. But that's the crux of the first myth. The second myth that I want to come to is that onboard mentorship is always effective. Every chief officer is teaching their third officers, every captain is teaching their chief officers. Now, let me get this right. When onboard mentorship happens, we have all learned from our seniors. That's the best. There is nothing to top that. But is it happening? There are several challenges to onboard mentorship, especially in today's day and age. By a show of hands, how many here has a teenage son or a daughter at home? Anybody has a teenage son or daughter at home, or somewhere in the ranges of 20 to 30 years? Okay, so I believe you'll agree with me that your son or daughter is more likely to ask the internet about a doubt than to ask you. Am I right? So the thing is, today's generation is a little averse to asking questions. How does that affect the life on board? We are expecting that the people on board will be teaching each other. Unfortunately, there's a psychological barrier in asking questions because it puts you in a vulnerable position. A junior that has been ridiculed to ask a question is far less likely to ask that question to the senior again because of that psychological barrier, because of the fact that the social media around us is validating us. It's making us feel important every step of the way. Every blue tick on your WhatsApp, every like on your Facebook, every share on your WhatsApp or on your Instagram makes you feel important, feel validated. That means you're important for this. Now, you step into a world where now you have to ask questions and probably get ridiculed for it. I'm not doing that. Let me find out. Let me find out from YouTube, from internet, from my friends. That's not a very smart approach. So we need And plus there are cultural barriers, interpersonal problems, language issues, so on and so forth. So many, and wrong mentorship. Wrong mentorship is worse than no mentorship. People not knowing what to teach on board and confidently teaching something wrong. So we need some smarter tools to deal with that. That's the second myth that I'm talking about. And the third myth, now this is going to sound very, very counterintuitive. We believe that technology is interesting to the younger generation. We have done some structured research on this. Now, technology is interesting to you only if you have lived the era before that technology existed. Imagine this. My 1-year-old son will never know a world where he cannot talk to his dad and see his dad visually on the phone. That's not technology, that's how phones work. He will never know a world where he cannot talk to a gadget like Alexa and that gadget does not talk back. So technology, that is how gadgets work. If it's not doing that, the gadget is broken. So my point over here is, just because we have spent that $2 million installing the latest VR gadgets on board or the latest instruments on board is not going to guarantee success in engagement. If engagement is the goal, if we are trying to engage the people, we have to think of being creative with the content, which means that VR headset, for example, is trying to take me into a world. Is that world boring or is it interesting? That is the question, and whether that is boring or interesting is decided by who has created the content and the creativity, the storyboarding behind it. So that's a very, very important part. Now I want to give you some examples of smart, direct and sharp solutions and I'm not talking theory here, we have implemented these solutions and we have got fantastic results. More than 4.5 years we have been implementing several of these solutions. But the solution I want to show you today is where it transitions from just being a training option to being something measurable. Measurable, I'm saying that with a lot of intention over here. A measurable performance improvement on board that does not depend on my opinion or yours. It can be seen. That means the vessel starts doing better in audits, starts doing better in inspections, and so on and so forth. The solution that I'm talking about today, which is one of the many we have, is an app called Guide to Inspections. Now, Guide to Inspections at its core is a smart inspection app. It can be used by inspectors for inspecting the ships. It can also be used by the seafarers to learn their jobs or to inspect and self-inspect their vessels at the same time. So it gives a complete inspection management system on one side, coupled with a direct, impactful mentorship. Really quickly, how the app works is like this. You click on the app and the vessel opens up in front of you in a grid format, divided into sections. Each section gives you a set of questions that are benchmarked against right ship requirements, SIRE requirements, port state requirements, and so on. You could take this app on deck or in the engine room. Of course, on a tanker, you've got to use intrinsically safe phones. You can carry out an inspection, including taking photographs through this app and reporting back on them. Once you've done that, you can click on the report generation, the report comes up, or you can sync it with the back end of the app, which now gives the person sitting in the office a central control on all the reports that are coming down from various vessels or from various inspectors. And now this information that has come in can be data mined, it can be sorted through what was my last 5 months observations on navigation, those kind of sorting and filtering can be done. So that's one part where the app acts as an inspection management system for the company. And I can tell you with confidence that the technology we have used is ahead of the generation, so we are scalable over the next couple of years. But the most interesting part is this app, if it is placed on board, it also acts like a 24/7 mentor for the ship staff. It acts to simplify instructions for them. How are we talking about simplifying instructions? We are simply, for each and every question, we are not just giving them a checklist. We are giving them videos, we are giving them photographs, we are even embedding games and other kind of content into it. There are more than 72 videos in the app, which is a complete training system in itself. We have scenario-based games to guide them into interview scenarios, into competency development at a very, very core level. We have more than 2,500 photographs that depict exactly what we need. So think about it. This is not just another well-researched information. We are trying to change a very fundamental thing over here. Till now, On the shore side, there was fantastic information, fantastic experience, research, well-researched professionals that exactly know what to say and how to do a certain job. On the ship side, we have always had a mix of different nationalities, different knowledge levels, different backgrounds. And as we have discussed earlier, that there was, we cannot control the environment on board. We will always have a mixed kind of a nationality. Now think of the conduit that we are passing this information through, the shore to ship information. It has been passed on by and large using several text-based methods. Now we are increasing the conduit. Our work is to improve the conduit as much as to improve the information. So if we can improve the conduit, which means visualization of everything, visualization and simplification of instructions, now we can reach down all the way to the oiler, all the way to the OS, and say that even that person understands exactly what we want them to understand. That has been our work. So what are we trying to achieve? What is NavGuide Solutions trying to achieve? Is it just about an app? Is it just about passing an inspection? Well, not really. First, mentorship for our seafarers may not be mandatory. The mentorship that I'm talking about right now, on-board skill development, may not be mandatory, but it is essential. If you've got to run the ships, we have to absolutely have structured methods that can show improvement. Also, helping the operators prepare for inspection is not just a training need, it's a commercial need. The operator or the owner may not be absolutely interested in training. They are very, very interested in how much money comes into the bank. So preparing them for SIRE 2.0, right ship, AMSA inspections, US Coast Guard has got tangible commercial benefits. Assisting post-state inspection regimes with a central inspection management system, so that one central place to track and data mine all the, as I said, the technology we are using is integrated with machine learning, which means we can use data mining within this and we can find trends in the industry or trends within that certain inspection regime. It can be definitely picked up by a second officer or even an oiler and an OS, and believe me, we have tried it out with the junior most ranks, with the messmen and the oilers of this industry. We have tried it out with them, very simple to understand. And they can learn their jobs from this, eventually creating a safer and more sustainable industry. Senior officers have always given us this feedback that it saves them time, adds to efficiency, speeds up preparation times. Juniors say that it helps them jump into their jobs, learn at their own pace. Now this autonomous learning at your own pace, at your own time, under your conditions, not having to force upon learning. This is another very, very big impact of having this app or the other approaches that we're talking about. Now, we recently became members of Intertanko, with whom we are trying to work very closely on SIRE 2.0. And we are not just training the people on SIRE 2.0, we are actually going down to the philosophy that SIRE 2.0 stands for. Your AB at the gangway might not understand or might not need to know what is the meaning of human factor or PIF. As long as the AB can receive the person at the gangway, can rig a pilot ladder, can conduct a safe moving stations, that is what the core philosophy of SIRE 2.0 is talking about. Organic improvement in competence. Now, couple of differentiators, something that keeps us ahead of other solutions. Of course, impeccable accuracy, subject matter experts, inspectors, auditors, senior professionals that have worked with us for years, studying thousands upon thousands of observations, responses to identify what are the blind spots, what are the people missing out on, what are the seafarers trying to, forgetting to check. This accurate information that has been compiled over years, combined with adaptable technology, we are using .NET Core, which is scalable over the next 10 years, working with a team of professionals that have worked in this industry, in that technology for more than 20 years. Giving you a 24/7 tech support, of course, and giving an offline solution. That app that I showed you works offline, and several other solutions that we have also does. Making it customizable, that means not restricting this to only the information we have collected. No, opening it up, opening all doors, so that the app can be used by any company with hundreds of years of experience to pass on that experience in a visual format to their seafarers. Not in a checklist, not as a circular, in a visual format. And the most important thing is simplicity. I cannot stress this enough. simplicity in everything, even the app that I'm talking about, that you pick it up within the first 2 minutes, you're good to go. Nobody has to be explained how to work around it or something like that. I remember a case where we had given it to an oiler in the engine room, and we asked him to check the bottom platform of the engine room using the guidance of the app. Now he came back after an hour and said that I could understand about 85% of what I saw. Now remember, this is not the inspection of a bottom platform from the level of an oiler, not from the level of a third engineer, not from the level of a chief engineer. This is an inspection of the bottom platform of the engine room. If the senior most inspector that existed came on board your vessel and literally wanted to rip apart the vessel in every way. If an oiler can understand 85% of that, imagine how much a third engineer or a second engineer would grasp. That is where we are getting absolute indications that this is not just a training method, this is actually showing measurable improvement. Yeah. I'm very happy to say that we are now supported by a very strong global advisory board. We have consisting of Captain Phil Davies, ex-Vice President of Chevron, Captain Sam Menkwa, by the way, he was at the center of the SIA2 creation process in OCIMF. Mr. John Adams, ex-VP, ex-MD of V Group, ex-MD of TK, Chairman of the Bahamas Ship Owners Association, and I'm sure most people in this room would know Captain Ashok Mahapatra, who had been the Director of Marine Safety in IMO. And God willing, February of the next year, February of 2024, we are taking this concept to the IMO and trying to explain to them what the things that we are doing. We are presenting this as part of the CIRN delegation in front of the HTW subcommittee on 6th of February. Now, what are all of us excited about? What is the effect of what we are doing? I'll just end with this last story that we were working on a company with a ship in Rotterdam in 2021. Now, this ship we knew was going to have a post-trade inspection. And we had asked the master had confirmed that everything was fine, everything was okay. Well, the third officer on board, who was following the guidances we gave, found out that there was a crack on the rescue boat at the point where you tighten up the lashing. Now, all of us know that is a very common area to have a crack. Well, a couple of days later, the port-trade inspectors came and they found the crack, but there was nothing to explain. We had workshops on board, we had repairs going on, so we essentially avoided a detention. And for a ship that is earning $80,000 a day, a detention is really serious. But more than that, we established for a fact that we had simplified information and created a culture of compliance. And I want to leave you with this thought, that if we can create a culture of compliance like that, if we can create a culture where the junior officers and the junior engineers not only know what to check and what to see, not only do they have the eyes of an inspector, but they are also empowered enough to come forward and talk about it. If that happens in our industry, we would have created splendid foot soldiers of every man or woman that steps on board, including the cadets that are sitting behind. And that leads to a safer industry, a safer ship. And inspection results are just a consequence of all that. Thank you. That has been my journey. Thanks.